Thanks everyone for being here. I'm representing Bell Labs, Alcatel-Lucent, the Belgium part of Bell Labs. We have two product concepts to show. We don't have demos from it, but we do have a couple of videos that we can show about the concepts. The concepts are mixed reality and PresenceScape, and we'll tackle both of them. But before that, I just want to give you one slide on who Alcatel-Lucent really is. Telecommunication company worldwide, more present in 130 countries, more than, delivering applications, services and networks to telecom providers, vertical industries, enterprises, etc. It has an annual revenue of 16 billion euros and R&D of 2.5 billion euros. We have 9 research centers, of which one of them is in Belgium. So in the next slide I will zoom in on that one also. A lot of executive business centers, IP transformation centers where customers can come with their equipment and integrate it with our engineers. And then a lot of course, product and solution development centers. So it's quite a big company that we have. The application research domain is one of the areas that's being researched by Bell Labs, one of the many ones. We, as a Belgium research department, are visual communications. That's the name of our department. And we actually have 2 subgroups. And one of the subgroups is really called Metaverse. So this is nice. This is nice. We'll have to think of another name when the project is finished, or maybe we can extend using this name. Why not? Why not? Okay. The other part is then a virtual director, and I will also show a little part of that research that's done by the other part of the group in one of the videos later on. So it's nice to see that we have a video here. We don't have a demo, and that we have kind of one video that shows, in fact, the research results of the 2 groups. So let's delve in on the first one, the mixed reality. We see on your left-hand side in the top, we see a very expensive communication system. It's not something that we see having each of us tomorrow in our home. It has its limitations. They have to decorate the room more or less the same in the different areas where the communication is being set up between the remote parties to give the impression that you're in the same room. There's a couple of other minus elements to this solution, but it is something where you can see each other. You can see the facial expressions of the ones you are talking to. You can see his gestures with his arms. So it gives you the body language. And that's something that we are missing on the right part. In the virtual environment, you have to do a lot of stuff on your keyboard to make a facial expression, to make a body language, a gesture, something like that. It's very annoying and it can disturb the conversation a lot. But then the virtual worlds, of course, are very cheap, and we all have them at home. You just need a broadband connection and you're there. It's also very immersive, and I think, though I've never been there in such a configuration, I think virtual reality, as we know it from Second Life, is much more immersive than what you can get from a setup like that. So we thought, why not try and combine these 2 things? And that's what we did. So we're going to insert in the virtual world not just the image of a person, but the stereo image, the real-time stereo image of the person who is sitting behind this PC and looking at the virtual world. And we're going to use that as a replacement for the avatar. So in the future, maybe you will see, instead of avatars walking around in the virtual world, you will see stereo images or even 3D images of persons in the virtual world. Very simplistically, the architecture, because I don't want to be too technical here. So the setup is really very simple. We have done experiments with a number of cameras. So we can use 2 single cameras that we use as one stereo camera. We can use the Minoru, that's the bottom one, which has a single form factor with 2 cameras inside. But we also used the forerunner of the Kinect from Microsoft, which is called the Zcam. And I just learned that it has Israeli roots here, so that's nice to know. We didn't use the expensive one. Our budget, though it's rather large, didn't allow us to buy the very expensive. Sorry.
After the billion, you couldn't spend.
No, after the billion, then it's then it stops, right? So we have a number of possibilities on the input side to capture a stereo image of the person. We have then the streaming technology. We have changed the virtual world viewer, the Hippo, the open source viewer of the Second Life, right? So to take in the stereo streaming and then use this input as visualization for the virtual world. And then we are just working inside virtual world, so our viewer is just connected to the normal Second Life, which we are all connected to, so we can see our stereo images really inside the virtual world, on condition, of course, that you have the modified Hippo version. Of course, we did have to make a 3D environment for a use case where we can test with family and friends whether this concept works, and we'll talk about that later. One of the persons over there will go into a little bit more detail. We have some control scripts because we didn't want to bother the people with animating and navigating through the virtual world, so we're doing this automatically for them. We have some control scripts there, and of course some management scripts to do a number of configurations. In big, this is a simplified version of the technical world. So this is the use case, just a short word about it. So you come in as an avatar in what we call a living room, a special place that we created for this use case. Once you are there, you can teleport to the second place that we created, the metaverse shop. You see there the colored images. Those are kind of a hoovering crafts, but these are really the very, very first implementations. They're not attractive at all. We have a lot of improvement also there. So as soon as the people are there, the avatars are there, they can choose one of those hoovering crafts, and as soon as they sit in the craft, their avatar will disappear and their streaming image will appear on the hoovering craft. At that moment also the hoovering craft will automatically be navigated by the control scripts to the third room, and in that third room the people were able to play a game, right? And that game could then contain pictures from an organizing committee, or even their own pictures that they can upload to the Second Life, etc., etc. There was some scoreboards that we kept, but people were able to see each other's images and body language, and that created a completely different aspect inside the virtual world. We'll show a movie now. So the few hosts, as we call them, the virtual hosts, the hovering crafts, are a bit more impressive here because this was done in Maya. We now have not this good in images in Second Life because they don't allow us to go this nice and this deep. But we could do this, of course, also easily in other virtual environments, gaming engine, etc., etc. So we do a couple of other things like background extraction. We have implemented this in a couple of ways. We are using what they call in Second Life sculpties, but then dynamically we change the sculpty every couple of milliseconds at a certain frame rate. We have used point clouds, and so there are different effects. One is better than the other in certain cases. Very nice work. So that's one of them. I have another one which is showing the use case itself, but if we have time, I can still show it. If not, then
7 more minutes.
7 more minutes. Oh, that's not a lot. Okay, so let's try and speed a little bit up. So the next concept that we were looking at for visual communication is PresenceScape, and then a piece of the conversational director will also be shown. So what's PresenceScape about? PresenceScape is of course about presence in 3D world. Presence and availability for casual communications. Meaning that if you are all in the same office, like here, you can start talking with each other without a problem. You're working, you hear something saying by your colleague in the back of you. It's interesting for you, you turn around and you start a conversation. It's very nice to be able to do that when you're together in the same location. But it's a whole lot of other, it's much more difficult if you are remotely. So people of our organizations are working at home. They are working in the lab, others are working in open office spaces, and maybe somebody else also still at the customer premises or in hotspots. So there are a lot of distributed teams in the world, and what we want to do is we want to create the feeling for those people who are working in different locations as if they are working together, so that they can have the casual communications that we know from the old office buildings that we were familiar with. So we kind of analyzed what do we have that can be, how are we aware of each other's presence? How do we know whether we are available for communication? In an office building you can turn around and see what people are working on, and whether it's a good time to contact them for questions or something. And then the second thing that we looked at is conversation initiation. How do you initiate a conversation? And then the third one is then the conversation itself, and that's then the part of the other research group, which is going to turn a conversation more into a directed conversation. So if person 1 is talking, the camera will zoom in person 1. If person 2 then starts communication, the camera will turn to person 2. So you will get more a movie feeling instead of a conference call or feeling that you would have. Also not the different, you can also split the screen in this part for the first speaker, that part for the second speaker, etc. Kind of a mosaic, but that seemingly does not work very well. So we try to do this in the virtual world. We have this communication setup, so presence and really communication, and we want to bring this inside the virtual world. And we created for that a space, a 3D space, where we have different rooms, and each room has a certain functionality. So let's go to the next slide. This is in fact the starting point of our first implementation, where we have 4 different rooms. We already stepped away from this due to user research that we have done over time. So there are moments where you want to sit silently and do some work because the next day you have an important customer to meet and you have to make a presentation. So you want to take some time private. That's what you would use the silent rooms for. You also have the meeting rooms, of course. There's meetings going on. So if you're in a meeting, it's a remote meeting, then other people are not very, how would I say it? Normally they will not disturb you because they know that you're in a meeting. So that's kind of the awareness that we want to create when people are remote, to know more about what they are doing at this moment, and then to find out whether they can be disturbed or not. Then we also have the open office. That's for your normal daily routines. where we have an open audio channel, so whatever you are saying at those remote locations, anybody can hear. So if you're saying, hey, look, there's an F-15 that crashed in Libya, everybody can hear it, can pick in on the conversation, and that's what the casual conversations that we are talking about. It brings people together again. It's not only the official phone calls that you make when you need them, etc., etc. And then, of course, the lunch, that's for break times, when you have spare time and not really working for office. To make this easy, because we don't want the users, again, we don't want the users to navigate and manipulate the keyboard to get this feeling. What did we do? We have some control scripts again for auto decoration, as we call it. So the avatars are decorated with objects, 1, 2, 3, giving, for instance, information about the project that they are working on, maybe even their mood if they want to share this with other people. We had a person which had a newborn baby, so we put the picture of, what's it called, the bird which is carrying the babies around. The stock? Well, the stock, so everybody was immediately informed about this event. So it's some fun stuff also. We have auto navigation, so as soon as somebody goes in a meeting and the system detects this, then your avatar, your representation as an avatar, will go automatically to the meeting room, so other persons will also immediately be able to see what your current activity is. And auto animation, if you're programming, maybe the avatar will start typing on his keyboard, stuff like that. Audio control, as I said, in the open office, everybody can hear each other. You can talk just about the office job or other things. Meeting rooms, you will have an audio channel per table. So that's also normal. If you go to a certain meeting, you're at the same table. This is an enclosure and everybody can hear each other, but the rest not. In the lounge, same thing. Everybody can hear each other. And in the silent rooms, we cut the audio. Right? So you really have to call in to be able to talk to the people. Again, very simplistically, an overview of the architecture. We see on your left-hand side that we have user applications, so the user is able to input, for instance, the project that he's working on. We could do that also automatically, but we have chosen for the user to do this. We have a monitoring application that scans which active applications are present at this moment on your PC, and we try to extract some information for again, providing visibility on what the user is doing at that moment. We have hardware sensors, thanks to the DevLabs guys, where we can monitor where the user is physically at a certain moment in time. So if it's at the office going in a meeting room, we know he's in a meeting room and we have his avatar walking to the meeting room. And then we also have a mobile phone application, again thanks to the DevLab guys, that whenever the user makes a phone call, his avatar will also go to a special booth, a phone call booth we call it, so that you know that he's at this moment actually on the phone and that it's again not the right time to disturb him. In the middle we have then a reasoning engine which gets all this input, processes it, and then sends the necessary triggers to the virtual world to auto-animate, auto-navigate, auto-decorate, and auto-change also the audio whenever needed. We used for this occasion we used the Open Simulator, so that's the open source version from the Second Life server side. And in this case just the normal Second Life viewer that you would use to go to Second Life. And then of course we created 3D environment, control scripts and management scripts for the configuration of the system. We see possibly a hardware implementation that on your desk you have a secondary device, whatever it is, a tablet or an iPad or I don't know, maybe some bigger size of a smartphone. But that's just one possible implementation. It can also be a simple application. And we also envisage a lot of different visualizations. We have been talking now about the virtual world implementation, but the reasoning engine in the middle is separated, let's say, by an interface which can also communicate to other virtual worlds. And we have made some concepts like an abstract world. It's more boxes moving around. And then maybe also holography. That's just an idea. It has not been worked at this moment. We've done a lot of user research, and Senka will go into that in a minute, because all of these different implementations, they tend to be used by a different kind of people, or maybe even by the same person at different moments in time. So we have also the possibility to switch between one representation and maybe a next representation. I'll show you a little bit of a lengthy video.
When team members do not share same physical space, they cannot engage in casual communication. And we know that short informal exchanges are very important for successful teamwork. Wolfgang is working from home today, debugging some code he wrote yesterday. He's using the PresenceScape to keep up to date on activities and availability of his colleagues.
So this is the standalone device that's
Wolfgang
just one
himself is
possible
represented as
implementation.
programming in the living room, indicating he's available for conversations. David is reading IEEE paper, and his location in the library shows he prefers not to be disturbed. Mark and Sigurd are having a meeting, and Mark's parent tells us he's working from home too. Jen and Orlando seem to be having a break.
Yeah, we know this. The only girl in the room, by the way.
While Wolfgang continues his struggle with software, Senka arrives at the office. This is relevant information for Wolfgang, and PresenceScape will show it to him.
The camera will also automatically go to any changes inside the PresenceScape. Something I didn't mention. So we also control the virtual camera. You also saw the first person clicking on the tablet. That was for overriding the auto zoom in, auto camera control. You can do that manually also. So she's emailing, and that's just one representation. A little bit of fun, and and this is the new daddy, by the way.
His break and has a look at the next year's budget planning. Opening the budget spreadsheet triggers Jan's avatar to walk to the shared working environment of the living room.
So he doesn't have to do anything for that, just open up the application and the avatar will be controlled automatically. You know that he stopped his lunch. One in the lab, one working at home, and one in the open office. He's working at home. And now in fact we're going more to what the other people have been doing slowly. We have implemented it also in the virtual world, the communication directing. That will start now.
Do you think we have to order extra PCs for the demo
Right, so the camera is zooming in on the person. As soon as he talks, he's zooming in on the other person. And the third person mixing in, having a casual communication.
Yeah, that's true. What type of screen do you think we should order? Jan started to talk, and thereby initiated a conversation. The PresenceScape switches between the talking colleagues. When a conversation goes on for a while, the PresenceScape automatically starts up full screen video. Also here a virtual director aligns the views to the conversation, reframing the webcam images and switching between video stream.
So we go away then, if the conversation is actually going on, then we go away from the virtual world, and then we have the camera directing, which shows the person who is speaking. If he's speaking too long, he switches for a second to another person. So we have kind of some cues that we analyzed also for this part. And that's it. So there's one more slide that I would like Senka to present. She has been working together with VOB Smith intensively on both the concepts, but then from user research point of view. Let me just close this one and go to the last slide here. Please, Senka.
What we just saw was an intermediate version of the PresenceScape. So in during the design cycles for both use cases, for mixed reality and PresenceScapes, we went many times to the user, and we worked on the concept and tried to redefine it based on the new findings. So I think in 2009, at the end of the year, we had a demo that we showed now, this movie. But from then, the concept had been changed and based also on the input from the users. What we gave here, it's an overview of different methods that were applied in this period while we worked on both use cases. So we had an interesting session yesterday trying to map everything, to put everything into one slide, and to give a nice overview of the methodology that has been used. So we try to understand the users and the context, and then apply the different methods to investigate those aspects. Later on, when generating the concept, we again went to users or used the input that we obtained from the previous research. For example, co-design session was really a session where we gave part of the information about our concept, but we also asked the users to recreate the PresenceScape and again learn something more about their vision and the needs and goals. Video prototypes we used a lot, as you saw. It was a good way to demonstrate what our concept is, but it was also a very good way to go to the end user and ask feedback again. I think proxy technology is something that comes from Smith, and it is also a good way to, while we still don't have the new technology that we are developing, but then to have an impression how people will accept it, and again learn new things. And what is also good to mention is that we gave many demos where we again collected a lot of feedback, but also we implemented both use cases. So in the case of mixed reality, we had a lab test where a family came and could play the quiz and really experience how it is to be inside of the virtual world and to see the video. And in the other case, we gave the PresenceScape to a team to use it for a certain time for 6 or 7 weeks. What we try to show here with the arrows is that the process is not linear, that there are many cycles that also within one phase, but also different phases are connected, and they don't come always necessary in the order that we represented here. So I think I like about both projects is that the user had an important role, and that we really thought about our user group and made design according to them. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.